There's a fear here for brand leaders when you give up some of the control to user-generated content. Because if you let go of polish, sometimes people translate that into letting go of brand standards.
Hit it! That's what I'm talking about.
Wait! Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
Welcome to Higher Ed Pulse, your no-fluff guide to artificial intelligence in higher ed. I'm Mallory Willsea, bringing nearly 20 years of edtech and marketing expertise straight to your earbuds. Higher ed leaders are expected to master AI overnight, but let's be real, no one has time to sift through every headline, hot take, or research report. That's why every Monday, I'll break down what actually matters, fast, clear, and to the point. Want to sound like the smartest person in the room at your next team meeting? You're in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Higher Ed Pulse. On today's episode, we're talking about what happens when human-centered social native content is treated as a strategy, not a side project. I'm joined by Emma Jamieson, marketing manager at Centennial College. Emma has spent more than a decade in Ontario higher ed, turning institutional goals into campaigns that actually connect with traditional prospective students. She's here to break down how and why her team intentionally built a UGC-driven strategy that's delivering stronger engagement, higher conversion, and real trust. Emma, welcome to the Pulse.
Hi, Mallory. Thanks so much for having me. I'm stoked to be here.
Okay, so while we have lots of video higher ed things to talk about, we would be remiss. There is so much culturally happening around new TV shows. For me, it's all about Bridgerton. I am literally counting the days until those back 4 episodes drop.
Yes.
What has been on your TV screen lately?
Okay, I cannot get enough of Heated Rivalry.
You and everyone else.
I know. And you know what, though? It's so funny. It's super spicy, but at its core, it's a really beautiful love story. And I love it so much. And I even started reading the books, actually, after watching the shows. So the books are even spicier than the show.
I love it. The girlies at bar are talking about Heated Rivalry nonstop. I haven't watched it yet, but they're like, by episode 5, I'm crying. It sounds like it's beautiful.
Yes. It is.
Once I get past these last 4 Bridgerton episodes, I feel like that's going to be next on my list.
Perfect. I highly recommend.
Amazing. All right. Well, let's move into talking about user-generated content and why and how it works when it's treated like a strategy. So right now, a lot of institutions are experimenting with lo-fi videos, student voices, and social native formats. Some of it performs, but sometimes it feels a little scattered. And I don't think the difference is effort, it's intent. At Centennial College, the shift towards UGC style human-centered content wasn't a creative experiment for Emma. It was a strategic decision about how credibility is earned today. Instead of leading with polished, brand control messaging, she and her team designed campaigns around real people like students, alumni, and staff who are speaking in their own voices and in formats that actually belong in our social feeds. And the outcomes speak for themselves. These assets consistently drive stronger engagement and higher conversion than traditional branded ads, all things that we are going to dig into with Emma today. Now, what is an interesting layer is this AI environment that we live in, where polished content is so easy to produce and it's hard to trust. So therefore, credibility becomes a differentiator. The content that performs best doesn't look unfinished. It looks honest and real. This conversation today is about what it takes to operationalize a UGC strategy, how to build guardrails, protect brand clarity, and scale it without turning it into more noise. Emma, we got a lot to do in the next 20 minutes. So
I can't wait.
Good. Me too. So let's just start at the, ground level. When you talk about user-generated style content, UGC, what does that mean to you? What is UGC to you, and how are you intentionally applying that at your college?
That's a great question. So I'm sure everybody might have a slight differentiation in how they describe UGC. For us at Centennial, it really means repurposing the organic content that our social team is already creating rather than investing in net new branded videos. And these net new branded videos, we would typically get agencies to create them, and they were beautiful, granted, but this UGC content typically features, like you said, staff, faculty, students, and feels very authentic at the end of the day.
Okay, so I know because we did some prep that this approach is yielding, better outcomes for you than traditional branded ads or those things, those really beautiful videos that cost a lot of money, take a lot of time. The big agency creates them for you. So let's break that data down. Like, what are you actually seeing in terms of engagement and conversion, or where is UGC really pulling its weight?
Totally, for sure. So I did some prep too, and I pulled some metrics so that I have some
we
actual
love
numbers
data,
to share
girl.
with you. So I'll mention too that we really had to rethink our current strategy for our campaign that we had in market now. And a big piece of that was the turmoil around higher ed in Canada due to these new international student policies. So, a lot of institutions tighten their wallets, tighten their purse strings. Like, institutions just don't have the money that they had before. So it kind of added this financial pressure, but we were able to turn this pressure into an opportunity, I think. And once we started seeing the metrics, we're like, I think we have something here. So we did a wrap up of our a Q4 wrap up, essentially, with some metrics of our campaign that's currently in market. And we're seeing 2 times more conversion, a 261% increase in paid traffic, and 12% more new users to our website. And when I say paid traffic, that's to our website as well. And I will mention that this UGC strategy is on top of, not on top of, but in conjunction with us doing an audience first segmentation and really selecting our channels based on our audience segments. So it was kind of a rethinking of everything all in one. And we're just seeing some incredible results that we're going to keep moving forward with.
I mean, those are great stats, like 12% increase in new users. Are you able to know, that is coming from this content because of the work you're doing on the back end to tag the videos, tag the links, et cetera?
Yeah, it's fully from this campaign that we have in market right now. So again, it's segmented by audience. And then, of course, depending on the audience, we select the channels that make the most sense for that audience. And then we select the UGC content that will resonate best on that channel for that audience. So there's a lot of pieces to it, but I mean, it's worth the effort. And it's funny too, because, it's making our existing content work smarter, not harder. So yeah, sure, setting up the campaigns takes a little bit more work, but I love repurposing things when I can, especially given how busy the team is. And they love seeing their content getting repurposed as well.
Of course. And there's I don't know, for me, there's nothing more gratifying than also seeing it work with real data.
Yeah.
I'm always saying I have no opinions. I just have data, and I use that data to inform my opinions. And you cannot argue against the numbers that you just shared. But let's actually step back for a sec. What's the creative? You're it's working. Well, what is it?
That's a great question. So it could be anything from showing students and their parents what the residence looks like. It could be sharing opportunities about co-op. It could be a variety of events, or it could be showcasing a program. It could be interviews or showing what it's like to just be a student on campus. So that student life information or that student life content.
Okay, so I think where teams often get stuck with UGC is that it just becomes a collection of posts. So everything you just described, I'm sure listeners are yeah, makes sense for UGC. Can you take it a step further and talk about how you're, say, maybe tying it to your student journey, or really just ensuring that this is you're making strategic choices versus just throwing a bunch of spaghetti at the wall?
That's a really good point, because you're right. If there isn't a strategy behind it, it could just look like a collection of posts and feel very chaotic. You mentioned the student journey, and it is very important to align this content to that student journey. So, based on your institution, kind of those peaks and valleys and when things are happening from kind of that student submitting an app or learning about your institution, even through accepting their offer. And so picking out the content that you've developed that kind of hits on those peaks within that student journey and serving it within your campaign during the time that they need to know that information or learn about that information or engage with that content, I think is really important.
You brought up the point about how, like, really the journey starts with awareness and just even simply learning that the institution exists. Where do you see video's role in brand awareness?
That's a good question. So we rely on video a lot, mostly because consistently data over time has shown us that video is key for our audience specifically, whether it be direct from high school, a more mature learner, or even a parent or a guardian. We do see video is king or queen in our organization. And so we use it, I would say, 75% of our awareness. We do mix in quite a bit of like static creative and things like that too. You don't want people to get too glossed over with just one format. And I think variety is really important, but we do rely on video. And I think we are lucky in the sense that we have a team that can execute that or support that strategy. I know not everyone has that, so I do feel very grateful in that regard.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's a fear here for brand leaders when you give up some of the control to user-generated content. Because if you let go of polish, sometimes people translate that into letting go of brand standards. And, you are clearly speaking to every point of the journey where video can have an impact. But if you go off brand, if you become inconsistent, if you become unclear, it can all break down. So what guardrails are you putting in place to ensure that that doesn't happen?
That's a good note around not wanting to stray too far from the brand. And I think we have built a lot of trust at Centennial with our internal stakeholders. So I'm grateful to say that there aren't a lot of cooks in the kitchen. So because there's not a lot of cooks in the kitchen and it's really our smaller marketing department really executing on this, we can keep it close, tight, making sure that we're consistently reviewing things with the team, but not in a way that we're trying to curb their creativity, because I think that's also a slippery slope where you start making too many changes for the sake of making changes, and then all of a sudden things don't feel very authentic anymore. So I think for us, it's really just sticking true to our brand guidelines, having a tight-knit team that really trusts each other, and always communicating up to our internal stakeholders about what we're doing and why we're doing it. And then I think they kind of go, you've got it. And they kind of take a step back and let us sort of do our thing.
Are you using data and stories to help those internal stakeholders like get comfortable with this type of content?
100%. And I think it's important in those conversations to reinforce that ROI. And when, we're using content that already exists and is already being created. So when the investment is $0 because you're repurposing content, it's really hard to argue with that ROI. And yes, we take any opportunity we can to bring, the metrics I shared earlier in our chat to our internal stakeholders to say, look, this is really working well. But again, it just helps build that trust. And then they go, okay, as you were.
I love that. That's great. I mean, I'm sure there are some very envious listeners right now, but
I'm sure there are. And, I've worked at other organizations where that wasn't necessarily the way. And I think that's just culturally kind of the dynamic that's been built at Centennial. And I'm really grateful for it.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Once again, I come back to it. I don't have opinions. I have data. And sometimes there it is. So, hey, we got to talk about AI because it's here. I mean, I've had Sora on my phone since December, and I had an episode with a former colleague of mine about Sora last month. It's really easy to create video content now, and AI is only going to continue to saturate the market. So are you using AI? And that's okay if you're not, but I'm kind of curious why you aren't, and where it may be supporting, any of your operations specifically around video right now.
Yeah. And you know what we do? I think anyone who says that they're not using it, I don't know how that could be truthful. And it has its benefits. So, we've been talking a lot about UGC, and yes, it's a driving factor of our campaign. We use that for prospecting. So still from a retargeting perspective, we use branded content for retargeting. So our feeling is once we've said, hello, this is who we are, we're serving up that branded content. We have used AI to help take, e-roll and imagery and things of that nature from kind of our branded database, if you will, to help pull together those branded videos. And we love using AI for, getting the creative process flowing. Sometimes it's really good to use for kickstarting ideas. AI is really great for helping hold together a script outline, or running a script through and saying, hey, have I forgotten any key thing? And AI might go, oh, your hook is soft, or it could have a better hook, or whatever it might be. So, we use it for things like that. We also sometimes use it in post for editing. So sometimes, if we want to customize some audio, or even just using like any other kind of post-production tools, like some tools have the edit by transcript, and you can, pull out words and it just kind of clips your video together. So, we're not afraid of using that, but whatever we do use AI for, it's minimal to keep that authenticity for sure.
Cool. So, what is helping you kind of scale your approach around user-generated content without it feeling like forced or repetitive?
That's a tough one. So I think because we have that audience first strategy where our segments are the main priority and help us inform the channels and the content, it keeps things honest. So if we didn't have that audience first strategy, I think the campaign would feel unclear, because maybe you would be serving something about, residents to someone who isn't interested in residents, or just serving people things that they're just truly not interested in. So I think it all comes down to your strategy. You have to have a really solid strategy before you start even considering what the creative's going to look like. So I think just making sure that our strategy is really tight is important and keeps things honest.
Yeah. So if someone's listening and they want to start moving in the direction of UGC more intentionally, but like everyone, we've got limited time and budget and probably a head count. What are some of the first things that you would recommend that they do?
I would love for people to start using the content that they already have created. So your Instagram or your TikTok is it's a database. It's all of this great, it's a gem minefield, if you will. So I would encourage folks to comb through your existing social posts and to start building out a digital content library. And it doesn't have to be fancy. It can be a file folder structure on your server if that's the case. And I spoke about the student journey, so did you earlier in our chat. And I think creating that digital library and just start plotting that really successful organic content against that student journey and see where your videos that have already been created might naturally fit. And I think you can experiment them slowly by adding them to an existing campaign and measure, right? You don't have to, there doesn't have to be any net new video creation, which is really exciting. Like, just comb through what you already have. Spend a day if you can and do that. And I think you'll be pleased.
Do you have a team of like digital ambassadors who are out there creating this type of content from the student perspective for you? Or are you just kind of seeing like what's getting naturally posted? Or is it a mix of both, maybe something totally different?
Yes and no. So we don't have a tried and true. On our international side of our operations, we do have international student ambassadors that this group is just started to get going. So we haven't really gotten enough traction with them to kind of comment on whether it's working or not. I will say, though, the members of our social team, wonderfully enough, are actual alumni of Centennial College. So they have the student experience, both of them, which is really fantastic. So they are full-time employees. They are on our social team. They are incredible. They have built this wonderful presence and trust when it comes to our social channels. And so they kind of are able to get the student experience, even if it's just them filming content with students or filming content with faculty. It's maybe not a traditional, like, having a student film a video on their own and submitting it to us. It's maybe a little more curated than that, but it seems to really be working, and it still does capture the student experience, I would say.
Incredible. Well, Emma, it's been so lovely chatting with you today. I really appreciate it. If anybody is looking to connect with you to learn more about this topic or the work that you're doing at Centennial, where's the best place for them to find you?
That's a really great question. Email's always fine. You're happy to shoot me an email. It's ejamieson@centennialcollege.ca. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm a classic accept. When anyone wants to connect on LinkedIn, I'm always happy to make new connections there. So yeah, I would say email or LinkedIn are probably the best ways to reach me.
Wonderful. And do you have any parting thoughts before we wrap this up on the topic of AI, video, or UGC?
I hope it becomes kind of a trend that all institutions start to move towards. I think, our audiences are really leery right now, and they're being fed a lot of things that they think, is this real? Is this AI? And you can't really look at any video these days without flipping to the comments and seeing someone go, is this real? So I think, AI serves its purpose, but I think when it comes to promoting our institutions to our students, we've got to keep it honest and authentic because they deserve that.
They absolutely do. All right. Well, thanks, Emma. Folks, they always go by so quickly. We'll look forward to seeing you next week. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to the Higher Ed Pulse. The show is a proud member of the Enrollify Network, home to Higher Ed's largest collection of podcasts. Enrollify is where higher ed goes to grow. So be sure to check out our other podcasts, webinars, video clips, blogs, and more. Visit Enrollify.org and subscribe for all the latest details and content drops directly to your inbox. Enrollify is brought to you by Element 451, the digital workforce platform for higher ed. Learn more at element451.com.